Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's second video, doing episode 7 of Strat Watch for today's second video. So, as also on a Wednesday, we're going to have a detailed look at what's going on in the stratosphere above the Arctic and the North Pole. And we will also be doing a review of a historic winter as well. This week we're looking at winter of 2009, 2010. Given that we have been talking quite a bit about January 2010 with this January cold spell, or the January cold spell that we had last week. So I thought we'd have a look at the winter of 09-10. We might have a little sneaky peek here at December 2010 as well with that. So that's coming up at the end of the video. But before we get to that, we're going to go through all of the forecast data and see what's currently happening in the stratosphere. Just to say that the first video today is our 6 a.m. UK weather forecast, and we will be live at 6 p.m. This evening with your 10 to 14 day. I think it'll be an interesting live stream today, so we'll see you a little bit later on for that. Right, we're going to start off with the current situation in the stratosphere. So this is how temperatures are currently looking. Black line shows where we've been with the temperature at 10 HPA and where we currently are versus the grey line, which is our long-term 30-year average. So we are colder than average with our stratospheric temperatures. Now we're increasingly breaking away from that grey line at this point of the year. I expect that would be probably somewhere around there, actually, somewhere around minus 60. Actually, around minus 72, minus 73, something like that. So, sorry everyone, so we've got a pretty cold stratospheric temperature at 10 HPA, and if you go lower down to 30 HPA, there we're even colder. We're somewhere about minus 80 still at 30 HPA. It's closer to the troposphere, of course. And we'd expect to be getting off about minus 70 now. So at both stratospheric levels, 10 and 30 HPA, we are substantially colder than we should be at this point of the year. And that is telling us that we've certainly got a strong stratospheric polar vortex at the moment. Well, this is how the temperature profile currently looks at 10 HPA. Actually, the coldest temperatures are shoved down over to the Atlantic and Northern European side of the Arctic, and there we are down to about minus 92, extraordinarily cold at 10 HPA. So if that was happening over top of the pole, let's go back, we would actually see the black line be somewhere down there. Goodness gracious me, that was all very dramatic, wouldn't it? But as it is, over pole itself, you know, we are colder than normal, somewhere about minus 72, minus 73, something like that. We did have a warming last week, but still in evidence over on the Pacific side of the North Pole. These yellow colours just here, but they did not infiltrate into the North Pole, have any direct effect on the pole, other than, I suppose, a bit of a displacement of the coldest temperatures here down into Northern Europe and the North Atlantic. Well, let's have a look at the forecast from the latest GFS run as I'm recording the video. So those coldest stratospheric temperatures actually get pushed up in towards Russia as we go through next week and into Siberia, and then sort of rotate back around into the North Atlantic, still hovering about minus 80, minus 85, something like that. So very, very, very cold stratospheric temperatures over on the Atlantic European side of the Arctic and North Pole. Over the pole itself, again, we continue to see those temperatures somewhere about minus 72 to minus 75, still significantly below average. In the more extended range, we start to see signs of a stratospheric warming taking place over Siberia and beginning to infiltrate into the pole as well. So that gets us to the 30th of January. Again, we've got a displacement event of polar vortex here through Northern Europe, into North Atlantic, into east parts of America as well. And over the pole itself, beginning to push those green and yellow colours into the North Pole. So that would lift the temperature up a lot. Of course, if that came up, we'd be going up to about minus, I don't know, probably about minus 35, something like that. So the black line would go up, where I should be about there. The black line would go up to about there. So it would actually be above average then with our first warming of the strategy. I think that's short of an SSW. I don't think that would reverse the zone of wind up to that point. And of course, it's a long way off, you know, so it probably won't verify in any case. That's right, the very extended range of the GFS. So that part of the GFS in terms of the strategy is as unreliable as everything else with the GFS in that time frame. So within the next couple of weeks, there's no real sign of an SSW within the GFS. We can extend out further than that, though, with the ECM WF weekly anomalies. So this is for week 1 next week, which is the 20th to the 27th of January. And these blue colours here, these are the cold temperature anomalies over the top of the North Pole itself in the stratosphere at 10 HPA. So we've established got very cold temperatures at the moment over North Pole. We see evidence of that quite clearly. Now, week 2 is the 27th of January, 3rd of February. Those blue colours maintained, so staying cold. The stratospheric temperature goes on to week 3 as well. That's the 3rd, 10th of February. Week 4 is the 10th to 17th of February. Still those blue colours maintained, but a bit of a warming looks like it's starting to happen over on the Canadian side and into the Pacific side of the Arctic there. And then that's week 5. That is Monday the 17th of February to the 24th of February. Then we see signs of a deepening of that warming, intensification of it. Again, it's over on the Canadian and Greenland side of the Arctic and the North Pole, which is a slightly unusual place to start the warming of. That's a very long way off, but it's quite a strong signal actually for being like 5 weeks away. So maybe it'll be towards the end of February, but we've got to look for an SSW. And if it happens then it, I'm afraid it's much more likely to impact the spring than it will the winter. So if this SSW, it does happen so many years, you know, it happens at the end of the winter or late in the winter, and that's likely to have more effect on March and April if it occurs. But again, that might be an SSW, it's 5 weeks away, quite a strong-ish signal, but on the temperature scale for an SSW, we'd have to go to the deep red and into the yellow colours there, like 50 degrees or more above average. So, you know, it's inconclusive whether that would be an SSW or not. This is how the extended range forecast looking for the mean zone of wind at 10 HPA. So we have seen a bit of a deceleration of the zone of wind. We are seeing a deceleration of the zone of wind just temporarily at the moment. And that's in association with the warming of stratosphere that we had last week over Siberia. However, very quickly rebounding, and the zone of wind looks like going to go to record-breaking levels again as we go through into next week. Remember, this is at 10 HPA, though, so it's not necessarily impacting the troposphere to the same extent. But there we see it. You know, we have seen through this winter on several occasions that we've had a record-breakingly strong zone of wind. We see a bit of a weakening there as we get towards the end of January, quite close to average then. We do see signs of a weakening of zone of winds as we move through February, but still above average generally, and not a huge number of ECM ensemble blue members, reversing zone winds. So these ones down here will be seeing a genuine sudden stratospheric warming event. There's only a handful of those doing that. Other ensemble blue members, yes, are weakening zone winds perhaps as we go into the second half of February, but that is a very, very long way off. So for the time being, the polar vortex is strong, almost at record-breaking strong levels in terms of its roots anyway in the stratosphere, and likely to keep a strong polar vortex associated with those cold temperatures at 10 HPA. And also strong zone of winds, likely to keep that going for at least the next 2 or 3 weeks. So definitely no sign of an SSW, reversal of zone of winds, split polar vortex, anything like that. No sign of that at the moment. We shall keep you posted with Strat Watches through this winter. Now, through this winter season of Strat Watches, we have been looking at historic winters. This week we're looking at 2009, 2010, not all that long ago. 15 years ago, as this January has had some similarity to, that's a slightly toned down extent, to January 2010. So we've been talking about January 2010 quite a bit. It's been in my memory for those of us that you know, can remember that far back. And my mind is getting a bit fuzzy, I have to say. No, so I thought I'd have a look at 0910. Right, so we start off on December 2009, birthday, mid-tropical winter. A bit of a warming happening over Siberia there, otherwise the blue, purple colours, of course, back in polar vortex, as we know, at its roots in the stratosphere. Let's see what happens then. So we go through to the 5th of December 2010. Bit of a warming around the edge of the pole, but basically keeping those cold temperatures there in the stratospheric level at 10 HPA. And that carries on to about a 10th of December as well. We do see a bit of a warming in the Atlantic, interestingly there, but otherwise, polar vortex still well and truly entrenched over the pole. And whatnot. Well, let's get through to the middle of December. It's about when the winter starts kicking off, actually. So, the coldest part, so sorry everyone, the coldest part of the winter of 2009-2010 was from the middle of December to the middle of January. I did have a little bit of a reprieve just before the new year. You know, during that Christmas week, I think got a slightly milder, but overall that was the coldest 4-week period of the winter. So that's how we look as we begin this coldest section of the winter of 0910 for Northern Europe anyway, with warming on either side of the polar vortex, stratospheric polar vortex with both blue and purple colours, but not an SSW. So the winter begins, as we see very often actually with these historical reviews. I do find it a little bit surprising that this is the case, but this winter begins without any SSW, you know, or stratospheric development of any particular note, to be honest. That's the 20th of December. The winter is well and truly on now. I'm sure a lot of you remember that wasn't it the tunnel from England to France that was snowed up and iced up just before Christmas of 2009, stranding a lot of people in France from getting home. You know, getting back to Blighty, get back to the UK. Winter really is spicy at this point. Very cold. 20th of December 2009. No SSW of note that will be responsible for that. So once again, we see a decoupling of the stratosphere and the troposphere during this winter as it kicks off and as it begins. Obviously, despite those cold stratospheric temperatures at 10 HPA over pole, in the tropospheric level, there must have been a decoupling that allowed for the blocking. We go through to Christmas Day 2009, and again, not much happening. Most blue colours and purple colours, polar vortex at their root. That's a bit displaced towards the Canadian side of the Arctic, but overall, nothing that would explain. You know, nothing that would explain the very cold weather and blocking that is currently going on. That's New Year's Eve, 2009. Again, we are in a very blocked scenario. I remember the New Year of 0910 was like really cold and, you know, increasingly snowing as well. Again, there is nothing there in the stratospheric level that would explain that. So decoupling of the stratosphere and the troposphere took place in the winter of 2009-2010 that, you know, was responsible for the cold weather. And that is New Year's Day. Hang on, we're going to go to January. That is New Year's Day of 2010. Again, you know, no sign of any warming of any note. Actually, we probably have colder than average temperatures at 10 HPA over the Arctic. Let's go a few more days further on. 5th of January, again, we see the very strong polar vortex at the stratospheric level. 10th of January 2010, again, nothing happening within the stratosphere that would explain the cold weather and the extensive northern blocking that's going on. This is about when we're at our peak with the cold spell, I think, of the coldest spell of the winter through 0910. And once more, we see nothing happening in the stratospheric level that would explain the cold weather and the blocking that's taking place. So once more, that's the 15th of January. Maybe a bit of a displacement courtesy of this warming over to the Pacific side of the Arctic. But again, nothing particularly exciting going on. Now, that's the 20th of January. A bit of a stratospheric warming event happening over Siberia now, or the eastern portion of Siberia. Is that the start of an SSW? The coldest period of winter is now over, though, and, the coldest weather is relenting. Well, that's the 25th of January 2010. Now we've got a major stratospheric warming event happening over Siberia, causing a displacement of the polar vortex into northern Europe and into the North Atlantic as well. So let's go through a couple more days and see whether this strengthens further. That's the 27th of January. Now the warming is infiltrating into the pole itself. Not sure this is quite enough to have reversed the solar wind, but it certainly is a significant stratospheric warming. And blimey, there we are on the 29th of January. Another warming is really gathering pace. So after that first warming, the polar vortex is already looking very shrunken and ragged, but further warming is to come, and that looks like a genuine SSW event there happening from southern Southeast Europe all the way up into Russia and back into Siberia as well. That looks like a proper classic. I've forgotten all about this. No, that's the 30th of January. I think we might have split the polar vortex at this point as well, as we do seem to have like two loads of blue. So I think it's just about split the polar vortex. That very, very dramatic stratospheric warming happening there over Siberia. And that warming increasingly infiltrating into poles. Well, I would think at this point the solar wind would have reversed. I think we've had a reversal of solar winds and a technical sudden stratospheric warming. Therefore, if you reverse the solar wind at 10 HPA 60 degrees north, that is a genuine SSW. That's the 1st of February, and again, major warming taking place. So it's interesting, again, we see this quite a bit with these reviews, don't we? Like for us, for Northern and Western Europe, the coldest part of the winter, which is the middle of December to the middle of January, happens without an SSW. Later on, we do get an SSW, maybe as a feedback from the blocking that's happened earlier. It does all end up in a major sudden stratospheric warming event, but that delivers, I think, through this winter, I think that delivers the coldest weather later in winter to North America. We do still get cold conditions, though, don't get me wrong, through late January and into February 2010. It is still cold at times, and there is still snow at times. So that does go on to some degree into the spring of 2010 as well. But, it's very interesting and a little bit unexpected, I would have thought, for a lot of you watching, that the coldest episodes, the coldest outbreaks of winter, of these winters, are often happening without an SSW. SSW tends to happen later on. However, as we've seen, I think which winter was it? There was one winter where it was the SSW that was the true game changer for that winter. Was it 1991? Might have been 1991. Anyway, one of the Strat Watches with the SSW proved to be the true game changer and flipped things around. Oh, and of course, 2013 as well. 2012, 2013. The SSW in that winter was a real game changer as well. But more often than not, actually the coldest conditions are happening in these historic winters without an SSW preceding them. That's the 10th of February, so by now the warming is beginning to fizzle out because damage has already been done. That's the 17th of February, polar vortex of cold temperatures trying to get back together again over the North Pole, but we're very late on in the winter now, and then we go through to the end of winter to 28th of February. And overall, we see again, the polar vortex is trying to get going, particularly over towards Canada, but basically it's done. It's a busted flush. We're so late on in winter that we're going to see like a cyclical warming anyway as we go into the spring, as we always do. What about December 2010? A lot of you will be interested in that. So while we're talking about 2010, why don't we have a quick look? Should make this more extended, this video, but let's have a quick look at December to remember. So that's the middle of November 2010, just before the cold weather is kicking off. Again, we see those blue colours there over the Arctic and over the North Pole as well. That's the 20th of November, when the cold weather really starts to set in across Northern Europe. Again, nothing happening from a stratospheric perspective that explains that. 26th of February, we're well and truly into the big freeze now, but nothing happening in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA, but would explain that. Bit of a warming over Siberia, a little bit over America, but not having any direct impact over the North Pole itself. That is the last day of November. I say we're well and truly into the big freeze now, and the December, to remember, is about to begin and commence. And again, nothing really happening in a stratospheric point from a stratospheric point of view to explain those extraordinarily cold conditions. That's the first day of December to remember. It's the 1st of December, and well, again, we've got the blue purple colours there over the North Pole. At least average temperatures, maybe a bit colder than average, particularly over on the Atlantic and Northern European side of the pole. Some warming on either side of the pole, but not having any direct impact into the North Pole. That's the 5th of December. Again, we see a warming through southern Europe, extending up into Siberia. Maybe a bit of a displacement event of a polar vortex towards Greenland and Canada in the stratospheric level, but for the pole itself, not having any sort of real impacts. That is the 10th of December. Again, warming, trying to gather through southern Europe and up towards Russia. So this is reducing consistent warming through this December, through southern Europe and up to Siberia. But we know that's not going to have much impact on the pole, on the stratospheric polar vortex. Actually, the stratospheric polar vortex looks like it would have been strong. So once again, this December, the December to remember, seeing a decoupling of the stratosphere and the troposphere. Now, let's go through to the 17th of December. This is the point where the polar vortex collapses down in the tropospheric level. We see a collapse of the polar vortex into Northern Europe. Just about the most extreme weather pattern you can get, really, for Northern Europe. In fact, I can actually show you that if we go here. That's how the chart looks for the 17th of December 2010. So look at the blocking here that we've got through the North Atlantic up towards Greenland and back into the pole itself, pushing out the polar vortex. The polar vortex, so blue and purple colours, that's the PB being pushed out into Northern Europe. A collapse of the polar vortex, not the stratospheric polar vortex, a collapse of the polar vortex in the troposphere into northern and western Europe, taking extreme levels of cold and extremely snowy conditions into northern and also western Europe. That is why December 2010 is the December to remember, but nothing at all happening in the stratosphere that would explain that extraordinary level of blocking. So it really is a case of the troposphere and the stratosphere decoupling with one another during the historic December to remember. Let's go through to Christmas of 2010, December 2010, and again we see both blue colours there. This is just where the cold spell is beginning to run out of road. So it was an extraordinary cold December for the CET, the cold December since 1890, almost a cold December, and the entire CET index back to 1659, but in terms of the stratosphere, again, nothing particularly going on. But at this point, we see that we are coming to the end of the cold spell, and by New Year's Eve of 2010, it's all over. By this point, we've got perhaps a more significant warming beginning to happen over Siberia. Out of interest, let's just see what happens through the rest of the winter of 2010-2011 from a stratospheric point of view. So that's New Year's Day 2010, when a warming is happening over Siberia but having no impact over the North Pole. 10th of January sees that warming shifting around towards the Pacific side of the Arctic, but again, no particular impact on the PV itself. 20th of January 2011, displacement event of a polar vortex, and interestingly, that's being pushed more towards the Pacific side, so that's quite unusual. Normally, when there's a displacement event, but the stratospheric polar vortex is displaced into the North Atlantic, Northern Europe, like we've got at the moment. But this is more of a displacement event over to the Pacific side of the Arctic and the North Pole by this warming that's happening over Europe. Let's go to 25th of January and it's looking like that. So by now, the polar vortex back into its more regular position over top of the pole itself. Very cold temperatures, below -80 by the look of it, over the top of the pole. Now, big warming by the 31st of January is happening over Siberia and over the Pacific side of Siberia. Does that to develop into an SSW? Let's go through the first day of February. Show major warming anyway over on the Pacific side, just about trying to infiltrate into the pole. But remember, in 2011, we actually had a very mild February. So it's a really cold December, but a very mild February, certainly for the UK anyway, with an early spring. That's the 5th of February. Again, we see the predictions being weakened, but I think the polar vortex is still well and truly in business here. And we go further on, 10th of February, Valentine's Day, 2011, keep those blue colours going. So I think this is going to be a winter, but never has an SSW. That's the 20th of February. We will still have positive zone of winds, 23rd of February. Let's go through to the end of February 2011. And May 6th. So this is a winter, 2010-11 is a winter that does not have an SSW at any point. It does have that major warming over on the Pacific side of the Arctic, but didn't impact the pole. And overall, the stratospheric polar vortex remains in business from beginning to end during this winter. But despite that, we still came away with the December to remember. So both 2009-10 and 2010-2011, the coldest periods of those two winters, which again was the middle of December, middle of January 2009-2010, and then like November into December 2010. The coldest periods were not preceded by any sort of major warming of stratosphere, any SSW type event. So it just goes to show you that you do not need an SSW to get extreme levels of cold and blocking. It can happen even without an SSW if the stratosphere and the troposphere decouple with one another, as happened during those two winters. Sometimes that level of blocking will lead later on to an SSW later in the winter, but again, that does not guarantee that we get cold after that SSW. In fact, it might take the cold away and send it over to America or send it over to Asia. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that review of both 09-10 and 10-11 and the December to remember. We love the December to remember. Classic memories from GavsWeatherVids. We're going to have episode 8 of Strat Watch next week, so check that one out. And if you'd like to do that, and we're going to be live at 6 p.m. with your 10 to 14 day live stream. I think it'll be interesting live tonight, so I shall see you a little bit later on for that. For this one, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.